My name is Darren. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's video will be the 7th and final episode for this mini-series on the experience of vocal horsepower, one of the 3 types of opera singing among the 9 elements of opera. In this final episode, we'll be finishing Andrea Chenier. The third act of the opera, Andrea Chenier, opens in a public square. Just like the first 2 acts of the opera, it opens with atmospheric scenes. Similarly to Act 2, the composer of the opera, Umberto Giordano, and his librettist, the one who supplied the words, Luigi Illica, seek to use these scenes to generate something. Whereas Act 2's atmospheric scenes were for generating a sense of danger, this act's atmospheric scenes are for generating the excitement of the opera's French Revolutionary setting. Emotions are thus very high in this act. At the same time, we also feel that way since Umberto Giordano and Luigi Illica have been cranking up the dramatic temperature during this dramatic feast. Both Giordano and Illica have been serving up delicacy after delicacy that increasingly stimulate our appetites. Things just keep getting better and better. Can Giordano and Illica improve on this record? Let's see. In the atmospheric scenes of Act 3, we'll see a synergy of the styles of the scenes in the first 2 acts. There are scenes like the minor musical number, Bercy's song in Act 2, and there are also movie-like scenes which display the essence of the times the opera is set in, as well as give it further detail like the interaction of the noble guest at the party in Act 1. Besides combining the features of both types of scenes, there are even more minor musical numbers lined up ahead of us. All of them have a little dramatic significance, so I'll briefly present them before I proceed to the major musical numbers in this act. For the first minor musical number, we have Mathieu the Sans-Culotte, a paramilitary for the revolutionary government, whipping up the citizens gathered in the courtroom into enlisting or donating to the country. To supply a bit of historical background here, during the time period this act was set in, France was under attack from the leading European monarchies, who couldn't condone the existence of a government that had overthrown and executed their king for fear that people might be inspired by France's example. Nobody's enlisting or donating. Just then, Gerard arrives. Mathieu asks him to take over. In the second minor musical number, Gerard continues where Mathieu left off. His speech rouses most of the citizens into donating. Its effect doesn't stop there. An old blind woman, Maddalena, emerges from the crowd, with a boy supporting her. She sings the third minor musical number, offering the boy, the last remaining male in her family, to the country's army. Gerard welcomes him on the army's behalf. The citizens perform a choral number as the setting changes. These patriotic musical numbers are only there to show Gerard is a government official with considerable influence. This fact will be important in this act. There's no hidden political message here, so don't read too much into all this. The setting changes to Gerard's office. He seats himself at his desk to draft a document for the committee. L'Incredibile reports to him. He bears news that Chenier was arrested in the morning at his friend's house, but there's no news of Maddalena. L'Incredibile guesses that Chenier's arrest will result in Maddalena's surrender. Gerard doubts it. L'Incredibile performs a minor musical number where he graphically assures Gerard that Maddalena will eventually learn of Chenier's arrest and throw all caution to the wind by looking for him. Gerard says it will turn her against him. L'Incredibile dismisses Gerard's concerns by telling him that so long as he can have Maddalena's person, he did not bother how she feels about it. He urges Gerard to speed up his drafting because the Revolutionary Tribunal, the Revolutionary Supreme Court, required it to open proceedings against Chenier. Gerard has second thoughts about continuing. Chenier had offended the public prosecutor Fouquier-Tinville, who intends to use those proceedings to settle his score with Chenier. By aiding Fouquier-Tinville, Gerard can dispose of his rival for Maddalena's love, but deep inside, he knows such an underhanded way is despicable. Gerard's wrestling with his sense of honor over his work on the revolutionary government's lawsuit against Chenier results in his big aria, the first musical highlight in this act. Gerard's big aria begins with a powerful recitative Nemico della patria, or in English, enemy of the motherland. From such loaded words, you can tell that this is going to be a very dramatic piece. As Gerard sings the recitative, he lists the accusations he can think of to strengthen the government's lawsuit on the document he is drafting. Gerard is accusing Chenier of being a foreign agent guilty of subversion and sedition. This recitative is for Gerard to establish himself as a significant rival. The role is best played by a dramatic baritone. As a baritone with the most vocal horsepower, he can apply the necessary weight to impress on us how serious these accusations are. At the same time, he also has to give them a certain amount of penetrative power or bite to make them menacing enough. After all, in this recitative, Gerard will be bringing Chenier down. Let's hear dramatic baritone Piero Cappuccilli sing this recitative.
Nemico della patria, e vecchia fiaba che beatamente ancora beve il fuoco. Nato a Costantinopoli, straniero, studio a Saint-Cyr, soldato, traditore, che di morire un complice e poeta, sovvertitor di cuori e di costumi.
Now, we'll listen to Gerard begin the aria proper as he ponders over what he's done. First, he sings nostalgically of the past when he could stand tall in serving the revolution. Then, Gerard sings of how he has been brought low by his desires and his emotions. He blames himself for allowing himself to be shaken by the temptation to take advantage of the proceedings to remove his one obstacle to Maddalena's heart. Gerard also blames himself for being too weak to decline such a task. Deep inside, he knows Chenier is innocent of the charges against him. The section where Cappuccilli sings this is a parlando section. Parlando is a style of singing which resembles talking because of how it seems to follow patterns of speech, like the greater use of inflections and the additional stress placed on certain words and the way it seems to have a conversational flow. If it's not for the verbal effects and the heated way Gerard sings how he feels angry about letting his desires and emotions get the better of him, Cappuccilli's rich, lovely voice will make me think he's truly singing this.
Mera di gioia, passare foglio delle vendette, puro innocente morte, chi canta mi credea, son sempre un servo. Ho votato padrone, un servo obbediente di violenta passione, a peggio uccido e tremo. E mentre
You could tell the verbal effects from the way Cappuccilli sang certain words like the note of disgust for the word pego, where Gerard started to blame himself, the sense of gravity he gave the word trema, where Gerard felt shaken, and the tearful manner he sang the word piango, where Gerard felt weak. That section Cappuccilli sang was really well done, but he would give much more to the final section. This final section has music that's abundant with lofty feeling. In the section, Gerard sings about the high principles that once motivated him to serve the revolution. He had wanted to inspire his fellow men to greatness, to help them up and work with them in building an ideal society where they could all live with one another in mutual brotherhood. Cappuccini rises up to these exalted words by giving everything he's got. Elevated sentiments, hopeful expression, poetry and vocal horsepower are all invested in this magnificent conclusion, which Cappuccini tops up with a splendid high note.
Scienza dei cuori destar delle genti, raccogliere le lacrime dei vinti e sofferenti, fare del mondo un ponete ora gli uomini l'immortale e in un solo bacio, e in un solo bacio
After hearing that performance, don't you think Cappuccini is in a good position to steal the show from Carrera's the title role? He certainly is. Cappuccini is one of opera's titans. To me, they are star dramatic baritones whose voices come across as sticks, but Cappuccini's comes across as a juicy and meaty slice of ribs. Even today, this succulent voice continues to be an integral course on several classic operatic banquets for the ears that can be sampled on disc. If that's not great enough, despite Cappuccini beginning his career in the age of operatic titans, unlike many of his peers, he was able to carry on into the age of video in peak condition. On top of those discs, there are also videos where you can see him in his best roles. What you've just watched was actually from the period near the end of his singing life. It didn't seem like it, didn't it? We now resume the opera. The result of the wrestling match in Gerard's heart between his sense of honor as well as his desires and emotions is out. Gerard decides to do without his sense of honor and submit to his desires and emotions. He will continue assisting Fouquier Tinville against Chenier. Once Chenier has been eliminated, Gerard knows he can lay claim to Maddalena's person. The result of that match is reflected in the music and singing in the upcoming excerpt, a short scene after Gerard's big aria. The music changes from its loftiness in the aria's final section to a turbulence in this one. Cappuccini's singing mutates from the touching refinement we just heard to grating rawness. Cappuccini even adds a dash of cynicism at the end, snarling his second last line. On with the excerpt.
Il cuore e chi così m'ha reso fiera ironia e l'amore come voluttoso e con nuovo padrone il senso bugia tutto sul vero la passione.
Gerard shows L'Incredibile the completed document for the tribunal. He passes it to a clerk sent by the tribunal to pick up the document. When the clerk has left, Maddalena comes to see Gerard. This will begin a duet by the both of them. If you'd watched my earlier videos, you remember that I had mentioned that operas like Andrea Chenier have love and combat scenes. In the earlier episodes on Otello and Turandot, we've seen a male singer and a female one engaging in vocal combat, but the pairs featured were existing lovers or lovers-to-be. In this upcoming duet, we'll see a combat scene between a male singer and a female one, where one's a rival and the other's either of the lovers. Maddalena's announcement of her name surprises Gerard, misunderstanding Gerard's reaction as a desire to avoid confrontation with her. She pleads with him not to leave. Gerard rejoices that Maddalena has finally appeared before him. He crows that it was he who planted spies everywhere to hunt her down and captured Chenier, so she'll be left with no choice but to come to him. Maddalena asks him what he intends to do with her. Gerard answers with a musical monologue. Gerard commences the monologue by declaring that he had always wished to possess her and that he will stop at nothing to achieve that wish. He confesses that he had always loved her since they grew up together on her family's country estate. Gerard recalls their childhood days. The composer Umberto Giordano used the orchestra to paint a few musical images of that period to furnish the backdrop for Gerard's recollections. I especially like the second image, the one with Gerard admiring Maddalena as she took her dancing lessons. The orchestral accompaniment sounds like the dance music of those days. Fitting its style, Capuccilli sings how his character Gerard once peeped at her through the door curtain when he was a boy in a touching no-frills manner. Let's enjoy this image. Having Maddalena cornered, Gerard exclaims she's within his grasp. With his desire spreading like wildfire inside him, he unleashes an outburst of burning passion.
Fosse un'ora sola, io voglio quell'ebbrezza dei tuoi occhi profondi. Io voglio affondare le mie mani nel mare dei tuoi capelli biondi.
After this outburst, there's a brief confrontation scene between Gerard and Maddalena. Gerard is ready to pounce on her. Maddalena refuses to yield. She tries to escape his advances, but when he catches hold of her, an idea hits her out of nowhere. Maddalena will yield, but she has something to say first. This leads to a musical monologue, but before that, let's hear that confrontation play out musically.
Che farai contro il mio amor?
Io corro nella fia e il nome mio che crea per me l'amore
No, non lo farai, no, tuo malgrado, o mia sarà.
Se lei la vita sua, tu fai prezzo il mio corpo ebbene prendi
Regarding Maddalena's monologue, this might be the best known musical number from this opera, more so than the title roles numbers because of Maria Callas' classic rendition. Due to this reason, it may sometimes be treated as a musical number on its own, even if it's actually part of a duet. Maddalena's monologue, La Mamma Morta, or in English, My Mother Died, starts with her recounting how she saw a mob kill her mother right outside her room as she blocked them from killing her. Eva Martin, the dramatic soprano playing Maddalena here, opens the monologue singing heavily with grief, as though it was about something so painful her character can barely relive. She then agitatedly sings the part where Maddalena remembers she saw a white-hot fire when she returned from a stroll that day. Martin reveals with a dead voice that it was from a family estate torched by the mob. We'll listen to it now. Maddalena continues singing how she lost everything that same night and how she has only been able to survive since her former maid Bercy prostituted herself to support both of them. This is followed by the next part of her monologue. Maddalena sings that she had lost all hope, but something pulled her back from the edge. What saved her was love, which spoke to her during that desperate moment that there was something she could still look forward to. In the part of Maddalena's monologue where she sings about love, the music changes from the poignance in the earlier excerpt to sweetness. When Martin first mentions that it was love which pulled Maddalena back from the edge, she sings with a sugary voice. Then when Martin continues about how love was able to do that, she sings with the fervor of someone who has newly gained a second life. Next will be the closing part where Maddalena continues about how love rescued her. Martin sings it intensely, portraying her character's conviction with vocal horsepower.
Io sto sul tuo cammino e ti sorreggo.
After that performance, I can finally understand why La Morta has overtaken Andrea Chenier's arias in popularity. In its first part, you have a heartbreaking recount of one of the worst things that can befall anybody. And in its second part, you have a soprano using the power of her voice to knock down the walls of your heart so you can share in her devout faith in love. How can anyone be unmoved by such a song? Having finished what she wanted to say, Maddalena resigns herself to having Gerard lay his hands on her. Martin sings this part like her characters lamenting her fate. As we heard, her voice was big, but she had enough control over it to press it downwards and pull it into a fine thread like in this excerpt. If Maddalena's monologue can have such impact on us, what more Gerard? It moves Gerard's heart to compassion. The tribunal clerk returns with some documents like the list of trials for the day, which Gerard browses. Chenier's name on that list immediately gets Gerard's attention. Maddalena implores Gerard to intercede for her. Gerard replies that chances are not high since one of Chenier's enemies has planned things such that he's to be charged and executed today. Meanwhile, the setting is being prepared for the trials as the soldiers march in. Nevertheless, Gerard assures Maddalena that he will repent for his earlier actions and strive to save Chenier. They wait. Right after this will be the finale for this act, the tribunal scene. In the first act's finale, we had Gerard leading a group of peasants to wreck the party where Maddalena and Chenier first knew one another. In the second act's finale, which was even better, we saw a duel between Gerard and Chenier. And now, we will see a finale that beats the previous one, a court scene which promises much drama. Citizens stream into the room. The trials satisfy their sense of spite because this is an opportunity for them to witness the downfall of the VIPs whom they feel had once sneered at them. Fouquier Tanville and the other tribunal judges arrive, followed by the prisoners to be tried that day. One of them is our hero of the opera, Chenier. This scene truly captures the feel of a court scene where you have the judges first read out the names and backgrounds of the other prisoners to be sentenced, even if they are of no importance to this opera. Then Chenier's name is read out together with the accusations against him, which we saw Gerard contribute earlier. He's accused of having been under a general who had recently rebelled and promoting anti-government dissent in his writing. Chenier's answer to those accusations will be the next musical highlight in this opera, which, like Maddalena's musical monologue, is considered a stand-alone number, though it's actually part of an existing number. Chenier's answer against his accusers is in the form of a musical monologue. He hurls his first line against his accusers, "Si fui soldato," or in English, "Yes, I'm a soldier," in a tone of angry defiance. One of their accusations was of him having been under a general who had recently rebelled. He then gives a heroic statement that he's honored to have risked his life for the country, which Carrera sings here with the same energy and force he sang the opening.
Fui soldato e glorioso affrontato la morte, che vile qui mi vien data.
Chenier then retorts that his work was for exposing the duplicity of the government. He reflects on the work he's been so proud of. As a poet, Chenier just has to compose a poem when he sees the chance. He uses a poem to express this pride, comparing his poetic life to a ship with white sails surmounting the waters as it navigates them in sunny weather. The white sails and the sun shining on them represent his purity of heart, favoured by the heavens. The orchestral accompaniment for the singing of this poem suitably evokes calm seas under fine weather. There seem to have been two different approaches in singing this. Most of the star tenors whom I've heard when I was researching this approach this poetically in a graceful manner. However, Carreras approaches this with the manner of a man looking back fondly on his past accomplishments in life. This makes equal sense when you think about the content of Chenier's poem. Let's see if we can agree on this.
Passa la vita mia come una bianca mera, essa incena le antenne al sole che la indora e affonda la spumante brora nell'azzurro dell'onda. Fa la mia nave spinta dalla sorte alla scogliera bianca della morte.
In the concluding section of Chenier's musical monologue, he describes his loyalty to the country by singing how the lookout of the ship he was singing about flies a flag with the word patria, or in English, motherland. He denounces his accusers as slime balls who can never stain his reputation. Chenier proclaims that he's not betrayed his country and ends off by telling his accusers that they may take his life, but they are not to take his reputation with it. You can feel Carreras' feelings well up in the section where Chenier sings about the flag on the ship of his life. Stirred by such strong feelings, Carreras applies force and energy of a magnitude we've not heard him use before. At the end, he gathers as much penetrative power as he can to shape Chenier's challenge to his accusers to take his life into a verbal blade he threatens them with. Carreras flaunts his vocal stamina with the way he suspends the high note that concludes his monologue.
Ma poppa io salgo e una bandiera trionfale sciolga i venti e sovri è scritta patria a lei non fare il bacio non sorra di cuore ma lasciami l'onor.
Regarding Chenier's conduct at his trial just now, some commentators on the opera consider it so reckless that it can only happen in drama. I think differently. Chenier already knew he was doomed during his trial. However he behaves, the outcome will be the same. Hence, he decided to deny his enemies the satisfaction of seeing him in the dock by setting their teeth on edge with the poetry recital of his life. Out of protocol, Fouquier-Tinville summons the witnesses. Gerard volunteers himself. He condemns Fouquier-Tinville's accusations. Fouquier-Tinville confronts Gerard with them, which Gerard repudiates. Fouquier-Tinville persists in upholding the validity of the accusations, earning Gerard's rebuke. Gerard zealously advocates Chenier's innocence before pointing Maddalena out to him. In spite of Gerard's advocacy, the judges all sentence Chenier to death. The act ends with Maddalena breaking down as she watches Chenier being led away to await his execution. The sensational scenes like the old blind Maddalena sacrificing her last remaining male relative for the army and Chenier's bold protest during his trial already have substantial dramatic impact that surpasses the short duel at the end of the previous act. Moreover, Maddalena and Gerard have two big arias here, each with such rich feelings that they have the potential to compete with, if not displace, Chenier's arias in the hearts of the audience. This act indeed offers a main course that amply fulfills the appetites kindled by the earlier courses in this sumptuous musical banquet. There's just one more act to go, but if you think that with the main course over, all that's left is the dessert, think again. Umberto, Giordano and Luigi Illica in fact plan to turn this opera's ultimate act into the ultimate act. Is that even possible? Let's find out! The opera's ultimate act begins in a jail. Chenier is writing his last poem with his friend Voucher waiting by his side to smuggle it out. The next musical highlight is this poem, which Chenier sings to Voucher. Of the several solo showpieces in this opera, this is my favourite. In the first excerpt we'll be listening to, the showpiece's opening section, Chenier describes a delightful day with a light wind blowing in his face under a pleasant sun that brushes him with his rays. The day dissolves as it passes into the night. You can feel the orchestras producing a light wind that blows over you, massaging your senses. To me, its accompanying music has this dreaminess which I feel transports my spirit to a carefree day under perfect weather in bygone years. As for the singing itself, Carrera sings smoothly to complete the overall effect. Chenier then sings how this poem brings him to the last mountain he'll ever attempt. In this next section, he sings how time is slowly running out on him and worries his poem may be incomplete.
Mi avvicina all'ora della morte e forse pria che l'ultima mia strofe sia finita annuncerà il carnefice la fine della vita.
That section we heard is a transitional one, but surprisingly I feel Carrera sang this better than the previous one. Carrera started with a slight chill in his voice to portray Chenier's awareness that the time to finish his poem is gradually slipping under him. He ended off with a note of dread to represent Chenier's fear that the executioner might come to pick him up before he can conclude his poem. I suspect that Carrera sang that section more beautifully since he felt this section where Chenier conveyed what was on his mind more directly was more inspiring. For the upcoming section, its ending one, we first hear Chenier urgently appeal to his muse to endow him with the brilliant ideas to perfect his poem. We have starry orchestral music accompanying this appeal to picture him reaching out to a higher being. This starry music then plays like a rapid current as Chenier feels the ideas rushing into him. With an exclamation of triumph, Chenier declares he's now able to wrap up his poem. Carrera acts this out in his singing. He starts with a feverish tone for the appeal, and when his character receives his ideas, this fever subsides to be replaced with a calm self-assuredness. Listen to how Carreras uses his vocal horsepower to project his character's renewed confidence towards the end. I love that musical highlight because I feel that its opening section's music washes away my negative thoughts for a moment, and its ending section resonates profoundly within me. For something as niche as opera, the audience is very slippery, so in order to maintain my grip as someone involved in creative writing in this area, I have to sustain the level of hype throughout. Words can make a huge difference. One sentence can make my writing crash. Another can make it soar into the heavens. The loss of words at a critical point, like what Chenier faced, is something I experience from time to time. When I hear Carreras feverishly singing Chenier's urgent appeal in such a situation, I feel he's also appealing on my behalf, many times more persuasively than anything I could have done. Boucher bids farewell to Chenier. Gerard gains entry for Maddalena to Chenier's cell. Maddalena checks with Chenier's jailer, Schmidt, if there's a young woman named Legray who's to be executed along Chenier. She requests that Legray be spared, proposing that Legray be substituted with another person. When Schmidt asks who that substitute will be, Maddalena proposes herself. Maddalena sneaks some jewels and gold to obtain Schmidt's cooperation. Schmidt accepts the jewels and gold, emphasizing she can expect no intervention from him if she was exposed. He instructs Maddalena that when Legray's name is called, she's to step forward. Schmidt departs to retrieve Chenier. Gerard hurries away to seek clemency for Chenier. Once Chenier is reunited with Maddalena, it will be time for the closing number in this opera, Umberto Giordano's and Luigi Illica's musical wedding cake. When Chenier meets Maddalena, he sings that her presence puts his heart to rest. She has been the person whom he longed to spend his last hours on earth with. The orchestral accompaniment is blissfully warm, suggesting Chenier's absolute happiness and contentment upon his union with Maddalena before his impending execution. Carreras expresses the sincerity of Chenier's happiness and contentment through graceful singing, with the sentences delivered cleanly and smoothly, one after the other.
Vicino a te s'acqueta l'irrequieta anima mia, tu sei la meta d'ogni desio, d'ogni sogno, d'ogni poesia.
Chenier's heart quickly fills up with sentiment till it overflows before it settles in that absolutely happy and contented state. Isn't this how we feel when we are reunited with the people dearest to us? Carreras exhibits this by infusing his singing with passion until the point where he bursts out during the lines "Degli spazi infiniti." After his outburst, he steadily returns to his previous graceful singing. Carreras' graceful singing is his manner of responding to the poetic singing required of the tenor on this sentimental occasion.
Dentro al tuo sguardo vide senza scerno degli spazi infiniti. Guarda in questo fiotto verde di tua larga pupilla e con
Maddalena sings that she and Chenier will be together forever from now since she has decided to follow him into death. In death alongside Chenier, nothing can snatch the happiness of their love from her. This moves the both of them to declare how deep their love runs. Martin brings her vocal horsepower to bear on these romantic words, giving them the weight their intensity deserves. She and Carreras beautifully sing their characters' declarations of their love. Maddalena informs Chenier she'll be impersonating a woman named Legray to be executed with him at dawn. She then points to Chenier that even in the gloomy cell where they met, hope still shines on them in the form of the first rays of light that signal the approach of the hour when they'll be joined together in eternity. Maddalena derives comfort from the light which Martin conveys with tender singing. Excitement seizes Maddalena as the hour draws near. Martin raises her volume accordingly, finally unleashing an ecstatic high note. As the sun rises, evoked by increasingly animated orchestral playing, Chenier sings Maddalena's praises. After it's Chenier's turn to be sent into a frenzy, both Martin and Carreras portray their excitement by channeling their vocal horsepower to release penetratingly loud high notes. The excitement even spreads to us when the high notes trigger an inflow of adrenaline into our bloodstreams. We'll now have a taste of all that.
Maddalena l'alba nome per l'amore te ide allegri. La luce incerta del crepuscolo, giù per squali di androni giallumeggia. Baciami,
With the sun fully up in the air, the orchestra paints a musical background which makes one imagine a bright sky hanging over Maddalena and Chenier. The radiant orchestral accompaniment also reflects their optimism as they look forward to the new life together which death will grant them forever. Maddalena is especially optimistic since death will finally put a stop to the string of misfortunes she had suffered since she lost her mother. Martin conveys her enthusiasm with a formidable demonstration of vocal horsepower where she also showcases the richness of her voice. Both Maddalena and Chenier are comforted that their imminent death will be their ticket to paradise. Martin and Carreras communicate this with their sweetest singing until the point where their characters become excited that they will be in paradise soon. They portray this excitement by tapping on their vocal horsepower to deliver another set of penetratingly loud high notes. One set is a standard showstopper for a love duet. This second set will be a highly welcome bonus for us. When it's concluded, the music stops. It's like the credits which play immediately after a superhero movie. Just when you think the opera is going to be over now, a short scene like the teaser for the next Marvel movie after the initial credits ensues, where Schmidt calls for Maddalena and Chenier to climb into the cart which will ferry them to the execution grounds. Only now is the opera really over with a third and final set of penetratingly loud high notes from Martin and Carreras. And now to hear Martin and Carreras finish off the opera.
Bella piena col suo
On paper, a love duet where the lead couple jointly go to their deaths might sound like a cliche. However, in an opera where one act has to contain more emotion and drama than the previous act, there are few other endings which can contain as much emotion and drama. On top of that, the emotion of this scene is what I feel to be the purest and highest form of love. The absolute happiness and contentment which just the other half's presence alone is enough to provide. It's the love of long-lasting couples which last a lot longer than the typical forms expressed in music like ecstasy, passion, ardor, desire, lust and romance, which will burn themselves out eventually as feelings cool over time. Moreover, when just one vocal peak where the lead singers go all out with the high notes will be sufficient in making their performance one to remember for life, this love duet has three. What more can an audience ask for in a resolution of a dramatic work? This is indeed the love duet of love duets, one of the best endings to be found in all of opera as some commentators describe it. If Eva Martin and Jose Carrera's rendition, which we've just heard, is able to make you agree with me on this, I strongly urge you to try those by Mario Del Monaco and Franco Corelli. They might not have visuals as attractive if they do, but the level of experience they can give is at least a few times greater. You won't lose anything when you listen to them. After all, it's not the sight of the lead couple eagerly anticipating their new life together, which death will bring them, but the way the music enables us to share in their emotion, which gives their final duet its tremendous impact. Among the Italian operas from the 1890s to the 1920s, Umberto Giordano's Andrea Chenier, despite being a masterpiece in its own right as Carrera's, Martin and Cappuccilli proved to us earlier, plays second fiddle to Puccini's operas Bohème, Tosca, Butterfly and Turandot, as well as the double bill Cavalleria and Pagliacci in the popular operatic consciousness. Does it really justify the level of detail in this walkthrough? I know that the plot of Andrea Chenier reads like a historical drama from a hack writer only good enough for a made-for-television movie, notwithstanding Umberto Giordano's efforts in ensuring that the lead characters are accompanied by vivid orchestral music. None of them has any tunes or melodies which gives them distinct musical identities. Not even La Mamma Morta is particularly memorable. Nevertheless, out of all the Italian operatic masterpieces from the 1890s to the 1920s, for me personally, Andrea Chenier ranks second to none but Pagliacci. I in fact love it more than any of the operas the much more popular composer Puccini wrote. This is because of the hero and rival whom Umberto Giordano and Luigi Illica created that made stars out of their first interpreters during the opera's premiere. Andrea Chenier is a tenor whom I like a lot because of his authenticity. I profoundly sympathize with the way he stood up for his beliefs. I also highly admire him for his courage in accepting Maddalena into his great heart. As we saw in the previous episode, Chenier could have fled the country, but he chose to stay to repay her for her sentiments towards him, which led to his arrest. Gerard as a baritone role normally doesn't receive as much attention as Chenier and or Maddalena. However, I feel his significance is not any inferior to theirs. Firstly, Gerard's role is crucial in shaping the drama of the opera. He was the one who sent the spy L'Incredibile, who contributed to Chenier's arrest. Gerard was also the one who proposed the accusations which were later used to condemn the arrested Chenier to execution. At the same time, he was the one who managed to reunite Maddalena and Chenier for their ultimate love duet. Secondly, Gerard's a more human character than Maddalena and Chenier, who are actually standard characters in a melodrama like this opera. I feel there is an additional dimension to him. Unlike Chenier and Maddalena, whose internal struggles mainly arise out of hesitation, Gerard actually experiences true inner conflict, as we've heard in his big aria, where he was torn between his principles and his desire as well as emotions. Furthermore, Gerard's capable of remorse and change, two sentiments not often encountered in characters like his in opera. He is willing to undermine his position by acting as Chenier's advocate during his trial and appeal to his superiors for clemency towards him after Maddalena's recount wins his compassion. Personally, I enjoy the presence of a dangerous rival in an opera, but I appreciate a rival that's human even more. it enhances the dramatic experience of opera that is its essence. Therefore, among the rivals in the various operas, Gerard ranks high in my opinion, albeit not having as much to sing as others. In the first 2 episodes, I defined what that experience was and mentioned how it could enhance an opera. From the 3rd to 5th episodes, we got to hear how vocal horsepower enabled 2 operas, Verdi's Otello and Puccini's Turandot, to achieve a high level of dramatic potency. We also heard how their lead tenor roles, Otello and the Unknown Prince, also known as Calaf, belong to the highest tier of manhood in the operatic world. In the 6th episode, we started on an opera more representative of the dramatic tenor's repertoire, Umberto Giordano's Andrea Chenier, whose passages require a mixture of robust and graceful singing. For the benefit of those who've stumbled on this miniseries through this video, let's recap what vocal horsepower is. Vocal horsepower is a type of opera singing mostly found in operas from the second half of the 19th century and early 20th century. It's a type of singing centered around penetrative power and weight. This penetrative power is the ability of the singer's voice to leave ringing shockwaves in its aftermath and go right through the bones and guts to the heart. This weight refers to the heftiness or bulk of the singer's voice. One of the easiest ways to know how much vocal horsepower a singer has at their disposal is to hear how strong and loud their high notes are, as well as how long they last. High notes delivered with plenty of vocal horsepower can spark off an electric current that they send racing through the human body. They can also trigger an incoming flood of adrenaline. In the previous video covering the first 2 scenes or acts of the opera Andrea Chenier, they started with a party on the countryside estate of the French noble de Coigny family. The hero and heroine of this opera, the title role Andrea Chenier and Maddalena de Coigny, met at this party, where she teased him into giving a spontaneous poetry recital which impressed her deeply. A number of years later, during the Reign of Terror, they are reunited in Paris, where the both of them were on the revolutionary government's wanted list. Meanwhile, they've fallen in love with one another. Chenier had been receiving letters from Maddalena that have been sustaining his morale, and Maddalena saw Chenier as someone she could lean on. After their love duet, they are detected by Carlo Gerard, a former servant of Maddalena's family who's become a government official. Gerard tries to break them up, but Chenier defeats him in a duel. The previous video ended with Maddalena and Chenier running away into the night, leaving an injured Gerard behind. And now for me to wrap everything up. The script for this and the previous episode on Umberto Giordano's Andrea Chenier was mostly written by me out of scratch, based on my impression of the music, my understanding of its drama, and my listening experience. Unlike the earlier episodes on Verdi's Otello and Puccini's Turandot, there weren't as many sources of reference available when I was writing. If you're hearing some of these things about the opera for the first time, my main source of reference was Alan Mallock's book on the Italian operas from the 1890s to the 1920s, The Autumn of Italian Opera. For Verdi's Otello and Puccini's Turandot, they are authors who will walk you through these works. However, for Andrea Chenier, all Mallock supplied were subtle but general observations about its music and drama, which I've tried my best to explain in simpler language with the benefit of musical examples from a real-life performance. Umberto Giordano's Andrea Chenier will be the last full-length opera I'll be presenting for some time. In my next mini-series, I'll be showing you the different types of dramatic experiences opera can offer through the various genres that comprise it. The Italian operatic masterpieces from the 1890s to the 1920s Alan Mallock wrote about, like Puccini's Turandot and Giordano's Andrea Chenier, and which Verdi's Otello is intimately related to, are only one genre of opera. There are so many more genres that constitute this marvelous art form, which it will be my distinct honor to introduce you to through subsequent episodes. If you had fun watching this video, please help me like it. If you'd like to continue chasing this series, please subscribe to my channel. If you wish to express your views about it or discuss it further, please feel free to leave a comment. Thank you, and stay tuned.